Hey everyone, it's Jack, and today I'm going to take a look at DTOS. Yes, Derek Taylor's own DTOS, which up till now has been a post-install script for Arch Linux, but now appears to be a full-blown distro. Derek has now got an ISO version available, live version that you can install right from the ISO using the Calamares installer. So this looks super interesting. Wow, I never thought that Derek would actually go down that rabbit hole of getting himself into being a distro maintainer, but I think you have, Derek. And I, for one, am really happy to see this. This looks really fantastic. I saw a video that Derek did the other day that he had released recently, and I was really impressed with what I saw. I got to get on here and experience this for myself and take a closer look at this. Because interesting, yes, DTOS had only been released a few days ago. It was released on October 2nd, 2023. So like I said before then, it was an installer script, but now it seems to be really complete. Here I am at the website, and I am at the SourceForge page right now, and I do have links in the description below where you can get DTOS. And of course, you can also find out more about it at the GitLab page that Derek owns out there as well. So with all that babbling, I'm going to get right to it, and I'm going to click this link, download it, and load it in, and I'm going to be right back. Okay, and now I'm back, and I'm sitting right in front of my Virt-Manager right now because there's something I want to address first before I go any farther. When I was watching Derek's video the other day, he did mention something about having a configuration in the script there to give him 1920 by 1080 resolution. That way he didn't have to adjust it after he booted in, because he also uses Virt-Manager quite often, and he didn't get a chance to show the trick that he was going to use in his configuration. I'm sure I'm not the only one that's ever done this, but I'm the only one I know. And so I'm going to share with you how you can get 1920 by 1080 resolution no matter what you're running, whether it's DTOS, Ubuntu, Fedora, what have you. So let me just show you that to you real quick. That'll just take a second. It might be helpful for some of you Virt-Manager users there. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go up here to edit and go into our preferences and just make sure that enable XML editing is checked. If it's not, just go ahead and check that box there. Once that's checked, then we want to select our virtual machine, of course, and then open it up to get into our back end here. And then I'm just going to take this and I'm just going to send that to another desktop real quick. Maybe I'll push that over to 3. There we go. So now we got a bigger screen here, and I'm just going to go into my settings here for this virtual machine. And what we want to do is go down to Video Virt.io. That's what I got set up for my card. And then if we click on the XML tab, you can see here that under Model, we have some references here, and it's also showing the acceleration is at no. Now, sometimes you might have this model as just one tag. This is kind of like a tag you would see in HTML, this XML file here. You may have a closing slash here, and that's it. So if that's the case, you want to take out that closing slash and then add in a closing tag for the model. So here you would have the less than sign with a slash model and then a greater than sign. So that would be your closing tag. So that would match the opening tag here like that. And then we want to add this line. This is the essential line right here. So what we want to put in is this. In between the less than and greater than sign, we want to have resolution space x equals, in quotes, 1920 space y equals, in quotes, 1080. So that's your 1920 by 1080 resolution. And then after that, of course, you have your closing slash and then the greater than sign there to close the bracket. And that's all there is to it. So on a typical setup, it would kind of look like this. Once you do that, you'll have 1920 by 1080 resolution all the time, every time you test something out on here. So whatever distro you're running, you should end up with 1920 by 1080. And that's how I get my resolution every time I do a video and I'm evaluating things in live mode and so forth. I don't have to adjust it because of that. So there you go. Now you know. Onward and upward. So I am now in my DTOS live menu, and look at that logo. What a gorgeous logo there. Wow. And so I'm going to go with the default here, open source drivers. So I'm going to just hit enter here. And then within a couple of short minutes, we ought to be booted right in. Now, I remember watching from Derek's video there that it does take a couple minutes for it to actually get all booted in. There's a lot of things going on in the background that need to load in to get your video going and all that. And I saw the welcome to DTOS up there too in the terminal screen, and I like that teal color that he put that in. So that was nice too. I did notice that while I was babbling, and that was a nice touch. So I'm going to let this load in, and then this might take a couple of minutes here, like he said. So we'll just kind of see how the loading experience goes. And so now we got the dark screen. So I'm anticipating that this is going to take about a minute. So I'm going to just pause it real quick because of that. I see my mouse is showing up right now. It's kind of seen that a little bit quicker than I thought. That's good. But I think it will take a minute here. All right, and I see the desktop coming in here, so yes, looking good. And there we go, got our connection established, and there's our 1920 by 1080 resolution. And look at that, the installer's coming right up off the bat. So I like that too, very handy. I didn't have to go looking for it or have to run it. And then of course, if you want to just demo it, then you can always just pop over like to another desktop. I believe it would be simply Super 2 if I want to go to desktop 2 or workspace, and 3 and 4 and so forth. And you can see we got the xmonad Qtile is our default layout here, which I like, and the gorgeous looking menu as Derek's got it set up with his impeccable taste for color there. I'm liking that. And it looks like we also got the Pamac Updater over at the end configured, and then our networking, and then the clip. I think that's copy Q. Yes, thank you there, tooltip. All right, so with that, I'm going back over to desktop 1 here, and let's jump right in and just get this installed. So I'm going to hit next. It's detected my language just fine and the location. So we're going to go next again, and then continue on with the defaults. And then I'm going to choose erase disk because I just want to keep it simple and erase the whole disk. And I think I'll select swap to file maybe, and ext4 is good for the file system, so I'm going to kind of stay with that as well. And then we'll just give it a name here, and we'll just kind of go with the usual toad wait, and then choose a password. And it's saying it's too weak. I know it is, but I like weak, at least for demos here. And then you also have an option here to require strong passwords. I don't see that very often. I like the fact that that's there. So there are certain situations where you may have to meet syntax requirements, especially if you're in a government agency or just a business that has higher standards. So I'm liking to see that there. Or maybe you just want to require it for your own friends. And then also we got our option to log in automatically without a password, which I don't really ever recommend. And then use the same password for the administrator account. And that's good. I'm going to go with that. That's the default. Login automatically, though, is pretty handy if you just want to have a guest computer set up for general public use. So there definitely is a place for that. So let's go next. Here's a summary of everything, and it all looks good. Derek did a great job there with the Calamares installer, getting that configured. Simple, sweet, and effective. So here we go. One last confirmation screen. I'm going to hit install now, and then we should be into the install process. And there we go. DTOS uses the amazing Qtile window manager for its power, speed, and beauty. And that's another thing I forgot to mention. Qtile is now the main featured desktop here for DTOS, whereas the installer script, I believe, xmonad was the one that was really kind of front and center there. So now we have Qtile, and Qtile is a very friendly tiling window manager. In my opinion, it's easy to use, Python-based, if I remember right, and very easy to work with. Qtile is very versatile and something I really like. And here we can see D-menu, Rofi, and FZF, among other things. And of course, Emacs is another front and center feature with DTOS. And with that, I'm going to pause this for a minute, let the install complete, and then I'll be right back. Okay, and here we are. It's all complete. So that didn't take too awfully long, maybe about 10 or 15 minutes at the most. So I'm just going to go ahead and close this out, remove the ISO, and I'll be right back. Okay, now here we are out at the DTOS menu here, and so it looks like everything installed just fine. I'm going to hit enter and let that go, and then we should be booted into our installed desktop. And looks like it's booting pretty fast so far. That's a good sign, and so we should be seeing a login screen here any second now. And there it is. And TPAD WIC. Wow, did I change that? Oh, it looks like I spelled my username wrong. Oh well. Log in, and it had the classic beautiful login screen that I typically see on DTOS, so I'm liking that. And I really like the fact that it's all in an installer now. I think that's just so cool. It kind of makes it more accessible to the average user, I think, that wants to get into something new like window managers. And so there we go. Here we got everything came up there. Looks like we got our connection established menu here, and we got our Arch kernel at 6.5.5. So that's nice to see. And then our CPU usage, our memory currently is hovering around 441 megs. So that's not too shabby. And then we got our disk space, our volume control. So I can kind of see our volume status there. However, I'm in a virtual machine, so that's not overly relevant in my setup here. And then our keyboard settings, and then our clock and calendar right here up on top. And then, of course, like I showed you in the live version there, we got our copy Q utility here, which is a nice clipboard utility that you can access. And by clicking on it, it'll open right up. And I'm liking the color scheme right off the bat. And then, of course, our network settings and our Pamac for updates. And I might as well just kind of run that, at least in the background while I'm here. And I can't believe I spelled the username wrong, but that's okay. I'm just going to go ahead and type in my password, authenticate. Then this should be opening up the Pamac utility here. And we're in our updating section. And so here you can see all kinds of things that are ready for updates, like our VLC. And of course, being that this is an Arch-based distro, we're going to have the latest and greatest of all this stuff anyway. So lots of things, including a lot of Haskell items as well. So I'm going to hit apply and let that do its thing. And while that's doing its thing, I'm going to jump over to the desktop number 2 using Super 2. And then we can kind of get a look at our desktop again. So here we got the Conky over here on the right-hand side, and it's showing the time and date. And then we get our CPU and RAM usage, which is nice. And then, of course, our Qtile Keybindings. And I always appreciate that, especially when I was new to window managers. I didn't have any idea what key bindings to hit. And of course, when you explore new window managers, sometimes the key bindings are going to be different than what you're used to anyways. And I like to kind of customize my configuration to key bindings that I can relate to in my head. So they're not always going to match with the key bindings that you'll see elsewhere. And a lot of these do match with my own, like the Super Return for the terminal and Super B for browser. And so let's hit that real quick and just see the browser. I think Derek uses the Brave browser by default, which is an excellent choice. And there it is. So yes, we got the Brave browser installed here. And then I'm just going to go yes with set at default. So these are kind of their setups. And I like dark mode. So I'm going to go with that as well on the browser. Nice feature here that we can just do that. And I'm okay with sending diagnostic reports and stuff like that. Anything that helps the developers improve their product and keep it on top of their game is always good with me. So there we go. Got our Brave browser working and looking good. So I'm going to tap out of there, and I believe that's Super Shift C, and I believe that's Super Shift C to get out of there, and that'll close the focused window that's open. And then if I just either click on the one, or you can press Super 1 and it'll get you over here. And so here we can see a transaction summary there, and it looks like there's a conflict with the Plasma Framework 5, the new one there. So it's asking to remove that, and I'm good with that. So I'm going to hit reply. I'm actually pretty impressed that it asked me to move it. I remember there were times earlier when Pamac wouldn't do that and it would just fail, and you'd have to go in the terminal and run it from there. So that's something I'm happy to see. Usually I do my updating in the terminal, so I didn't notice that, and that may have been around for a while, but it's the first time I've noticed that, and I like it. So good for Pamac. Okay, and the updates have completed. So it's asking for a restart for the changes here to update because we got things on a system level. So I'm going to go with that, let it restart, and then we'll be back in action in no time. And no time went pretty fast here, and we're back to our Tpadwick login. So I'm just going to log right in, and we'll be back to our desktop, and got straight to the desktop that time. Nice. So it looks like the updates went on just fine. And so here we got our key bindings, kind of back to this again. And so we can open up a terminal simply with super return, and that'll give us a terminal here and a nice color scripts going on up there in the background as well. And if we do an htop, might as well do that since we're freshly booted in. You can see here the memory usage is at about 524 right now, and bouncing up into the 530s. So it's pretty consistent with what you see up here in your upper right area here on your top menu. So the fluctuation is quite consistent with the htop. So it's nice to see that you have an accurate thing going on here, assuming htop's accurate, which I assume it is. So I'm going to back out of that, just going to Control C and jump back onto the terminal and maybe pop over to the second desktop. Or let's go on the first one again, and then I'm going to open up Thunar, except I don't know what the key binding would be for that. Let's see if it's on the Conky here. A lot of times you don't see those right on the Conky, but sometimes. And yeah, not seeing it, so I'm just going to maybe D menu. Let's see. Actually, let's do our run. I think that's Rofi, so I'm going to do a super shift. Let's see what a run menu is. Maybe super shift, So it'd be super shift return. So I'm going to hit that, and there we got our run menu. So I'm just going to type in here, maybe Thunar. I'm not really sure what the default is here, the file manager. So I'm not seeing Thunar. See, what else is there? PCMan FM maybe? Oh, there we go. So we got PCMan FM here as our default file manager. Nice. I like the color scheme here on the folders. Very nice. Well done, Derek. Excellent. So here we got our file manager, and if I turn on my hidden files by using Control H, I can see our dot files here. And you can also get to those through the view menu and just select show hidden right here with the Control H. So anyway, let's jump in here and take a look at our config. So here we got different configs here, even for awesome. Nice. That's awesome. You got our DM scripts here, got your Emacs folder, and that's one thing that Derek stresses a lot, that this is Emacs done right on DTOS, which is awesome. I don't know much about Emacs, so I can't really test that theory, but knowing Derek, I'm going to take his word for it. If he says it's done right, I believe it. So also, we got our Polybar folder. Here's the configuration for your Polybar, which is what you see on top here. So if we were to jump into here, and let's see what that opens with. We got Emacs here, NeoVim, Vim. Very cool. So let's try NeoVim. So if we come over here, we can scroll down and just kind of see our configuration here for the Polybar. And it looks like it's organized very nicely. Here we got our colors. And so it even has the instructions here to change the color scheme, change the value inside this variable here, the color scheme.color within that bracket. So that's kind of cool. And then you got all these different color schemes that you can use. So very nicely done. And then, of course, the schemes are laid out here under each of these categories. You got your Doom 1, Dracula, and so forth. So I can tell that took a bit of time to get all that squared away, I'm sure. And then here we got our main bar area. So this is kind of organized to where we can look at our main bar. And this is BSPWM. And I really like that he's got this already kind of pre-configured, similar to what I see in Arco Linux. And that was one of the things I really liked, was how the defaults were set up there in my Arco Linux install. And so fairly similar here. Very good. So we got BSPM and our modules A to Z. So it seems to cover all the bases there, which I like seeing that. So I'm just going to jump out of there, out of the Vim here real quick. So I'm just going to hit escape and then :WQ to get out. And then let's jump up and take a look at our configuration real quick under Qtile. So I'm going to pop over here, and here we got our colors Python script, our config py, auto start script here as well. So yeah, memory's a little fuzzy, but let me just jump in here to our auto start. And these are things that you can pop in here for when you log in, things that'll load in right off the bat. So it looks like you got the Conky settings and so forth right in here, and other things that don't interfere when you need to restart your Qtile window manager. And by the way, to restart that, it's simply Super Shift R, I believe. Let me try that. Yeah, there we go. And that'll restart your Qtile window manager if you have to make a change, especially if you're making a change to the config. So why don't I just switch over to that real quick? And we'll pop into our config PY and just see how that's laid out as well. So far, I really like the organization of the whole thing. And here we go. So DT Max. I like that. Emacs on steroids. DT Max. Nicely done. Good job, Derek. I like that. That's really cool. And great colors again. It's just a really cool rainbow effect there with all the cool colors. What can I say? And so if we go down here into the bottom section, we can kind of scroll down and see our basic configuration here, and even what's assigned to the mod, the my term, the browser. So here we got Brave as the variable, which is nice. So that makes it easy to simply use my browser where it's needed. And same with the Emacs client. So we got a nice variable here, my Emacs, which denotes all this. So it's a lot easier to type up my Emacs than it is for that whole line. And then here we got some key commands here, so you can see our super return or mod, which is the super key. So super return, and then here it shows what it does. So lazy spawn my term, which is Alacrity up here. So whenever we say my term, it's referring to Alacrity, which is the default terminal here on this desktop. And then, of course, we got our description over here. So here's where you can change your keyboard commands and add to them and so forth. And so very nicely organized again. For example, if you wanted to change your terminal from super return and maybe you wanted something else like, I don't know, super T for terminal, then we could do that right here. So just as a quick example, I would just hit my I for the insert here, and then just hit my delete here and take out return and make it an I. And if I save that by hitting escape and then W, and that'll write it. And then we can make even more changes. But I think I'll just try it real quick since I'm up here. I'm going to press Super Shift Return to refresh the desktop. I think that's what it was, right? Super Shift Return. Oh no. That's the run launcher. Never mind. Maybe it was Super Shift R. Ah, there we go. Okay, so that reloads Qtile. So now if I press Super T, it should open another terminal. And it did something else. Oh, I did Super I. I meant to do Super T. Oh, that's funny. Well, anyways, I'm going to do Super I. And there's our terminal, so it worked just fine, even though I messed up with the letter there. But we're good. That's all good. So Super Shift C will close that, and then I could just change that back to its default. So I'm just going to hit I for insert, and then just return that back to return. There we go. Cool. So then I'll just write that again. And now when I restart my Qtile, we should be good. And there we go. Nice. All right, so yeah, our config file, very good. And then, of course, we got all this variations down here. We got our Emacs settings and so forth. Groups, so here you can even change your group names if you don't like the numbers. You can change your labels there and make it something else. Like, for example, if I wanted one to be where my web browser always opens up, I could change that here and just make it like www, and then just save it, Super Shift R. And there you go, it's working. So now we got our triple W up there in the upper left-hand corner. I forgot to save it. When I hit :W, I didn't hit enter or something, so it didn't actually save. So after refreshing it again, then it took. So our label now matches up here. So now we got that as www. Personally, I just like having numbers in here. But if you do like having other labels instead, then that's how easy it is to do it. So I'm just going to save that real quick again, and this time I'm going to actually press enter when I write it. And so now when I do Control Shift or Super Shift R, www will change back to 1, and now we got 1 there again in the upper left-hand corner. So that's how easy it is to make changes on the fly, pretty much. And then we got our layout theme, colors. So this corresponds to the Polybar config that we were in before. So here's where you would actually change that. And so I just kind of figured that out while I was looking at this. So back in the other one, when you had your colors dot and then all those different categories, Doom 1 and Dracula and so forth, this is where you would add it. So I remember Dracula as being one of the color schemes. So I'm going to just change that here to Dracula and just test that out. So I'm going to hit I for insert and then just kind of change that to Dracula, do a save, and then refresh our Qtile, Super Shift R, and then we got a different color theme. So, and maybe I was wrong, and it didn't work. Why? Could it have something to do with this note that Derek put in? It's best not to manually change the color scheme. Instead, run DTOS-color scheme, which is set to mod plus PC. That's how easy it is. So Doom 1, that was the original one. For some reason, I was spacing on that name. So we could go, and now I can see all the choices, which is really great. And I am feeling very comfortable in this desktop environment, actually. And so if I come up here and I just go into my run menu again, Super Shift, I think it was Super Shift Return. And in our run menu, we got this. Also, we got our D menu over here, so you can do things like set your background and do a web search right from D menu and search for from your DM hub. So really nice things. I'm going to just do a Super P and then B. So Super P followed by a B. And then let's look at some wallpapers real quick. So I'm going to go random here. And then if I say no, I can cycle through more. And so if you want to keep cycling, you can just keep saying no. I really like that one. I think I'm going to just yes that one. So that's how easy it is to do your background. And you can also change it using the default picture viewer as well and set your backgrounds that way. I really like just cycling through it though. That's kind of nice. For me, it's just like gives you that element of surprise. So beautiful background. And I got to tell you, this is just kind of a quick look at DTOS, but I've seen enough already to say that I really want to daily drive this. I also like the easy access to the layout switcher here. Like if I have a few things open, like I'll open up our Brave browser here using Super B, and then maybe Super Return to get a terminal in here as well, and maybe even PCMan FM to boot. So Super Shift Return, because I don't know if there's a keyboard shortcut to that or not, but we'll just use our runner there and open that up. So now we can kind of get an idea of our layout. So if I select these, we can just kind of easily go through. This will maximize the main window over in our left stack there, side, and then our stacking, and then columns, which is kind of familiar to me as well. Then we have our tree tabs, and I really like the tree tab. This is kind of a Qtile thing, if I remember right, and I think a fairly new feature as well. I could be wrong, but I seem to recall that this is kind of a newer Qtile thing. And so here we can, over on the left-hand side, just by selecting these little buttons over here, if you want to call it that. So we're in group 1 right now. So I could have our Brave browser is already selected, and then we can go and tab over to our terminal, and then Toadwick, which is our path here to Padwick for our home folder here, and our PCMan FM. Yeah, very nice. And then after that, and I haven't really messed with the tree tab that much. I would need a little more practice as far as working with all the other groups there. And it is a pretty versatile feature, I think. I do like the the vertical tabs. I can see where that would be pretty handy in a lot of areas. And then we got our zoomy, so that just kind of zooms everything in. And then we can pop over here, and when we mouse over, we got our terminal, and then back over to our Brave browser. And you can click on it to select it, and then you can also go back. Now you can go back and forth between the terminal and the file manager. And then when I hit file manager again, so just by clicking on it, you can keep cycling through the different things that are open. Very nice. And then back to Monad Tall. So I like the xmonad Tall here feature the best, just because I'm used to it. But I could see myself using some of those other layouts under different circumstances as well. So that's kind of cool. And then if you want to shrink and expand your windows, and that's on the Conky menu too, by the way, you can hit super and then your equals or minus up on your keyboard. If you have the right-hand application, which is our Brave browser in focus, then super equals will expand it horizontally or contract it. And then for items that are on your right-hand side, it will expand and contract vertically. So here we can make our terminal bigger or taller, and we can shrink it. And then as a result, this will become taller down here, the PCman FM. So nice, easy to manipulate windows. And I am thinking that is really cool. So I'm just going to close out of these guys real quick. And there you have it. I think I've kind of covered everything here. I didn't want to get too long-winded, but DTOS is really super impressive to me. In fact, impressive to the point where I'm going to daily drive this. So I'm just going to take the plunge and just kind of install it on my main computer here. And I'm just going to play with it because I feel like it's ready for a daily drive. At least for me, I am ready to give this a daily drive because, well, I have backups in place and so forth. So if something really went haywire, I can recover from it within a few minutes. If you're a beginner, hey, you might want to think about it a little bit unless you got a computer that you can mess with. Derek has made this really easy to just pop in a live CD and you can just play around with a live ISO on your thumb drive, even on your main computer, because in a live environment, if you just boot your main computer to it and just putter around in it for however long it takes until you feel really confident, then you can go that route as well, especially if you don't have an extra computer laying around. So I like the fact this live environment is really fantastic. I think this is going to help a lot of people gateway into a tiling window manager. This DTOS I find to be really exceptional, and I am super impressed with it. And like I said at the beginning of the video, Derek, I think you got yourself into a wormhole. You're going to be maintaining a distro. Unless you got a master plan to get out of it. Anyway, so my review is double thumbs up, 5 stars all the way. I am loving this, and from time to time when I'm making videos, I'm also going to be giving you a little update there as to how things are going in DTOS and if I'm still daily driving it. And we're off to a great start here, so I have a feeling I probably will be daily driving this for probably a long time because I don't see where I would have a whole lot of incentive not to. And DTOS at the login screen has an option in there for Wayland, but the Wayland is not actually activated, so it's not really set up for Wayland. This is Xorg only, and I'm good with that because when it comes to media production, making videos and running OBS Studio and doing other things like that, Wayland doesn't seem to like me a whole lot. So I tend to have little issues even now with the advances they've made in Wayland. It still does not work 100% for me. So unfortunately, even though I like Wayland, it doesn't like me a whole lot. At least my setup here or my hardware. In your case, it might be a totally different scenario. And with that, I'm going to give Derek's DTOS 2 more thumbs up. I hope this quick look was helpful, and if it was, don't forget to leave that thumbs up. And if it wasn't, leave me about 4 thumbs up. Okay, that didn't make a lot of sense. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button too. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.